Imagine you're a landlord. You rent out a perfectly decent house. The previous tenants left it a bit rough around the edges, but it was livable. Then the new tenant walks in, rips up the floorboards, slaps a massive tax on the radiators, and then stands at the front door with a clipboard saying growth is just around the corner. That, in a nutshell, is Rachel Reeves and the British economy. And this week, the people who actually run Britain's biggest companies have had enough of nodding politely and decided to say so loudly. Deloitte, one of the biggest consultancies on the planet, has just dropped their quarterly survey of the UK's chief financial officers. That's the money people, the ones who decide whether companies hire, invest, or quietly start planning redundancies. And the results are not exactly a ringing endorsement of Labour's economic master plan. A net 26% of CFOs said they felt more pessimistic about their businesses than they did just 3 months earlier. And crucially, this is the first time they've felt more pessimistic than optimistic since June 2023, right before the UK slipped into recession. Let that land for a second. Britain's top financial brains haven't been this gloomy since we were literally entering a recession. Cheers, Rachel. Now, to be fair, and we will be fair, briefly, the pessimism levels are still above the lows seen during COVID and Liz Truss's chaotic 44-day premiership. So at least we're not quite in the country is on fire territory. More like the country is quietly smoldering and everyone's pretending not to notice. Progress, apparently. But here's the really damning part. Deloitte's chief economist Ian Stewart said that with cost control taking over in the wake of the budget, CFOs have trimmed their expectations for corporate investment, discretionary spending, and hiring over the next 12 months. Businesses aren't going to grow. They're not going to take on more staff. They're going to sit on their hands, cut costs, and wait to see if this government eventually figures out what it's doing. Hiring expectations, by the way, have fallen to a 4-year low. 4 years. Cast your mind back 4 years. We were still doing lateral flow tests before meeting our own grandparents. That's the hiring confidence level Rachel Reeves has achieved. Phenomenal. Unless you think this is just some abstract boredom anxiety that doesn't affect ordinary people, let's connect the dots, because this is where it gets personal. The latest figures show job vacancies have plunged to 694,000, a 5-year low not seen since the depths of the pandemic, while unemployment has climbed to 5.2%, the highest rate in 4 years. That's not a statistic on a spreadsheet. That's your nephew who can't find work. That's the graduate sending out CVs into the void. That's real people, real lives, directly impacted by decisions made in number 11. And why are businesses so spooked? Because in her first budget, Reeves unleashed a £25 billion tax rate on jobs by hiking employers' national insurance contributions, despite Labour's manifesto explicitly promising not to raise national insurance. You read that right. They promised they wouldn't. Then they did. And now the bill is coming due, not for the government, but for every business owner trying to keep the lights on and staff paid. Indeed's figures show that new job advertisements in the UK have dropped by 12.3% since Reeves delivered her first budget, the largest decline among G7 countries by a significant margin. Germany down 5.4%, France down 4.4%, the United States down 3.2%, Britain 12.3%. Dead last. The wooden spoon. The booby prize. We didn't just lose the race. We tripped to the starting line, fell into the crowd, and knocked over a refreshment stand on the way down. Now, the CBI's chairman Rupert Soames, not exactly a firebrand opposition politician, put it in terms even a cabinet minister could understand. He said the Chancellor told business at budget time that there was an unexpected £22 billion hole in government finances, and business was going to have to fill it. In filling one hole, he said, she's created another, a hole in the confidence and trust that business has in the government. That's the head of the Confederation of British Industry, folks. That's the business world's equivalent of your dad calmly putting down his newspaper and saying he's disappointed. It lands differently when it's not a politician screaming it across the dispatch box. Meanwhile, the government's response has been nothing short of spectacular in its detachment from reality. Wes Streeting, bless him, showed up at a conference and declared he had total confidence in Reeves's economic management. Total confidence. while Deloitte was publishing grim surveys, while hiring was hitting pandemic-era lows, while businesses were quietly freezing recruitment, total confidence. That's the kind of loyalty that makes you wonder if he's read the same news the rest of us have, or if there's a separate, more cheerful version being distributed within the Labour Party. And here's the longer-term picture that should really worry you. The UK economy grew at just over 1% in both 2024 and 2025. With CFO confidence and risk appetite still running at below-average levels, a similar weak outturn looks likely for 2026. 1% growth. That's not turning a corner. That's barely turning your head. Meanwhile, concerns about UK productivity and competitiveness have risen to the highest level since Deloitte first began asking the question back in 2014. Over a decade of asking business leaders what worries them most. And right now, in 2026, they're more worried about Britain's ability to compete than at any point in that entire period. That's not a blip. That's a trend. And trends don't fix themselves. What makes all of this so maddening is that the government inherited an economy with problems, yes, but also with genuine potential. Instead of backing business, cutting through red tape, and giving companies a reason to invest, they walked in and immediately made it more expensive to employ people, more uncertain to plan ahead, and more tempting to look elsewhere. You don't fix a leaking roof by adding more holes and calling it ventilation. The Deloitte survey, the falling vacancies, the hiring recession, the CBI warnings, none of this is happening in isolation. It's the predictable, measurable, documented result of a budget that treated business as a cash machine rather than the engine of the economy it actually is. Every job not created, every investment shelved, every young person left waiting. That's the real cost of this Chancellor's decisions. If you think this kind of economic analysis matters, and trust us, it really does, hit subscribe to British Reform, where we break down exactly what's happening in Britain, without the spin, without the waffle, and without pretending everything's fine when it clearly isn't. We'll see you in the next one.